Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today is Thursday. That means it is Work It Out. And so that's not about exercise. Today is all about our work life. So in Confidence Through Cabaret, we talk about personal life, work life, and stage life. And today is about work life. And our kind of running theme this week is about energies. So on Monday, we had our masterclass Monday, and we featured River Starlight and Elemental Touch, and we talked about being on our website confidencethroughcabaret.com. You'll find the masterclass when you make a profile. We also talked about just those deep cleansing breaths and what that can mean. And then on Tuesday on personal life, we talked about what those masculine and feminine energies are about. And then yesterday we were so honored to have Akriti Kundu, who was talking about divine feminine and all about the feminine energy and what that feminine energy means. And you'll find that podcast from Akriti on anywhere you get your podcasts, Confidence Through Cabaret. And you'll find the masterclass from Monday from River on confidencethroughcabaret.com. When you make a profile, then you can go in and check out that and many masterclasses that we have we're so proud on our website. So today I wanted to come back to the masculine and feminine energies. And if you're just joining us on today, then that's all good. We talked about masculine energy being more about doing, more about getting stuff done, about drive, about competing, about focus on logic, about much more about being here, I'm going to say. And we also talked about feminine energy being here and being about feeling, being about, still here because it's creativity. We talked about, kind of being in touch and flow as being feminine energy. And you can find out more about that on Tuesdays and the whole week on Confidence Through Cabaret's podcast, all about feminine energy. But I wanted to come back and talk about energies when we're at work. So, for example, if we were talking about one of the topics that I work in is time management and work-life balance, those kind of things. Very often we're talking about tools to manage our time, and time, just like masculine and feminine, is a man-made construct. It's not a real thing. It's a concept that we put language around to be able to share information. But when we talk about time management, it isn't about getting more stuff done, which the masculine in me says, yes, what's my to-do list and how can I get more stuff done? But it's also about aligning with our values and aligning with our home life and aligning with our family, friends, community, so that we have more of a balance. But again, not getting stuff done. It's also about allowing ourselves time to honor what is important to us. So that's our values. When you talk about something like stress management, again, a lot of times we talk about, so what are the things to do to relieve or reduce incoming stress? And it's a subject that I cover a lot in conferences in my business world. But again, it can have kind of a masculine feel to it. It can be that masculine energy of, so what are the tools and how do I use them and who do I contact? And it's doing, which is great if that's what you need. But it's also important to acknowledge the feminine energy of how am I feeling and what's going on for me and what sort of things does that stress result in for me? And how am I able to express my creativity or not if I'm stressed? So the balance of masculine and feminine energy is important. And if you go to any meeting, I spent a lot of years in meetings. If you add them all up, it is literally years. And it's very often about what's going on, what's happened, where are we at, what are we doing, what's our plan, and then everybody goes off with a to-do list. Or information or goals or and very often those goals are again based on our masculine energy, based on our what needs to happen, how is this going to be measured, by who, by when, and so on. And if you're talking about you know, being in a meeting, we very rarely afford the time to say, how's everybody doing? How are you feeling? What is that meaning for you? How could we be more creative? Now, creativity is a it would go, if you're making two lists of, you know, how the energies work, it would go on our feminine side if it was allowed to be expressed and the expression of our creativity. But sometimes we turn the creativity into a to-do list as well. And I've been guilty of this because it's a way of showing results, right? It's a, you know, how I feel. I'm feeling better. It's not really immeasurable. I'm feeling less stressed. It's not necessarily immeasurable. So when we're talking about, you know, something like creativity, it's not about creating a to-do list. It's not about saying, okay, what could we do? What could we do? What could we do? And making a brainstorm list. It should also be about playfulness, and it should also be about honoring our feminine side. It should be about saying, oh, it's possible. And, you know, and just sitting into that for a while. And then we can switch to our other energy and say, okay, so with this wonderful list of possibilities, or not even necessarily a list, but there's all of these options, how do we make that work? And that's when we can go into our evaluation and planning and doing. But you see, what we're trying to create is a balance here. And very often we're imbalanced, and we want to kind of raise that. um, you know, creativity can take a little bit longer in the workplace to sort of have a play with ideas, and often we don't make enough time for that. So a lot of what I do when I go in and work with a team is as allow that play. And it's amazing how many people say, I never feel heard, and that's because they express from a feminine point of view, and people can override feelings, and people can, you know, ignore play, or think it's a waste of time, and it isn't. And yeah, it might literally take a little bit longer, but if it creates better results, surely that means we're creating something that's better and stronger, and we don't have as much rework because we're hitting the mark. So another way that the kind of masculine and feminine energy needs to be balanced is when we talk about um, conflict. So my co-planner and I, Ryan, when we talked about this segment, you know, we talked about, oh, how would we use feminine energy in conflict? Now, I do a lot of conflict work, either in literally resolving conflict as a facilitator, or a lot of work around causing teams to see where their conflicts are, and helping them learn tools to alleviate those or avoid those in future. um, and conflict, you know, we start on a fact basis. Now, if we start on a feeling basis, that's better. Like, how do we all feel about what's going on? Let's acknowledge what's going on, and how do we feel about it? Because that lets us feel heard. And for those of us who express with feminine energy, that lets us feel understood. And then we can go into what is really happening and what is root cause. And we can start to go into some of the more detached and factual and logical pieces, and we can start to pull away from that and say, okay, so let's look at this in a factual sense, which by definition is about what's happening and what needs to happen. So we're doing in a masculine energy. Um, so when we ignore the feminine energy, we can fail to be heard. We can fail to feel like our creative juices are not flowing. We can fail to feel like we're understood. And so you can come up with a to-do list, and I might play along with it, but I might not. And you'll find that you can lack engagement if you don't allow time to talk about, how are people feeling? How are you? You know, if you manage people, you better be having one-to-ones. That's I've spent way more than years talking about performance management. You know, you better be talking in your one-to-ones about, how are you doing? How do you feel about things? Because that will give you some clues as to what's going on. And then we could talk about what's going on. I'm not saying make it all, you know, about holding hands and crying. I'm saying that there needs to be a space where we're free to express those things about how we're doing. So, you know, um, if you have a plan in your work life, if you have goals and targets and time management lists and your to-do lists, that's great. But how do you honor that feminine side? How do you honor your ideas? How do you honor your feelings? How do you honor being understood? How do you make sure that you're being understood? Because if you're not, and if you lead with or have a lot of feminine energy, there will come a point when people will go, "Mm, I'm not so sure because nobody's really listening to me and I feel misunderstood." And, when we talk about being engaged, about being motivated, which is just willingness to put energy into something, then we can very quickly be drained if we're not engaging enough of our feminine energy. And again, I just want to stress this is not about men and women, because a lot of women lead with masculine energy and a lot of men lead with feminine energy. But unless you're checking in with people and talking to them about what's going on, and if you're a manager, by the way, and you don't normally do this, then people are not going to trust that necessarily the first time. Particularly for introverts, you're going to need to keep asking the question on a regular basis for people to say, oh, okay, you're still asking me, how do I feel? You're still asking me, how are things going for me, and what ideas I have, and how I want to express that, and how I feel that the communication within the team is going, and so on. um, but you'll need to do it a few times to build up the trust level before people will open up. I mean, you only have to have been in one of those company meetings where everybody's moaning, and then as soon as the senior management come in and say, who wants to ask a question, everybody goes, I'm good. Because they don't trust that. They don't feel safe. And feeling safe is a massive part of our feminine energy, because our feminine energy is about nurturing. Our feminine energy is also about receiving. So if you want to give somebody feedback and you want them to hear it, you better make sure that they're in a place to receive. Because when we're giving, that's a doing thing, right? So that's a masculine thing. I had a little bit of a meltdown this week. Well, actually, I guess last week, really, because we're almost through this whole week. But it was the previous week. I had a little bit of a meltdown when I started thinking about how to indulge myself, and I came across the fact that I don't. My indulgences are all to-do lists, and several of my friends were saying, "You need to take downtime. You need to take a day off. You need to," and that's a doing, right? Doing, doing, doing. And I was ignoring that because what I didn't need was more doing. And when I did take time off, I felt like I'm just sitting here thinking about all the things I'm not doing. This is not fun. I don't enjoy this. And until I got into the space of actually, I need to relax in a way that honors me. I need to indulge myself in a way that feels okay and safe, not always good, because a lot of the feelings I'm processing these days doesn't feel good, but it's still necessary. So, I think you could tell somebody you should relax, but again, it's a doing thing. Maybe try asking something more like, what would you enjoy? How do you want to look after yourself? How do you want others to be involved in that or not? Rather than, what do you need to do? You need to go for a walk, because then we're giving advice, and giving is a masculine energy. And when someone needs to engage in their feminine energy, they need to be allowed to think about, how do I do that? Or maybe it's just a friend, as has happened to me last week, saying, let's go for a walk. Rather than, why don't you go for a walk? Never in a million years. I've got stuff to do. Masculine energy. And yet at the same time, the feminine energy in me is crying out for processing I'm processing what happened for me in January. I'm processing what's happened, the way it comes in waves with, grieving my mother and my recent loss. It comes in waves, missing my children. It comes in, and those kind of things. If I just fill that up with, okay, here's another to-do list, here's my book, and here's all my stuff, then we never honor our feminine side. And so, I don't know, work-life balance, that's a whole other topic, but certainly masculine and feminine balance, it's worth finding that. Please comment below. Join our Facebook community. It's Confidence Through Cabaret. We love sharing and expressing that in the in the community, but also in challenges. So if you check out the units section, there's all kinds of different challenges that are about connecting to the different energies. And there's lots of threads there, sharing kind of confidence tips and support and uplifting. So please do join us in the community. Like and subscribe below. All the social medias are Confidence Through Cabaret, with the exception of Your Body, Your World, Your Stage, which is our Twitter handle at YBYWYS. And on Clubhouse, I am at Heather YBYWYS. And that stands for, as I just said, it is your body. It's your world, and it is your stage. Enjoy. I will see you tomorrow. Focus on you tomorrow. That you just know is going to be a lot about honoring your feminine side. And I love having you here. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.